Coming up on today's episode of Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings, Bennett Stirtz is a bad man. We're going to talk to you about why the Iowa transfer could be one of the top point guards in this 2026 NBA draft class. Coming up next.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings, your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, Hoop fans, to another episode of Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings. Thank you very much for making us your first listen every day. I'm Tyler Rucker, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Tyler Metcalf, the mad scientist. Metcalf, how are we doing today?
Terrific. Just another beautiful week, another day closer to college hoops and NBA hoops. Not that anything's happening in that world. Kicking off, but just happy to be here talking hoops.
Yeah, a little crazy in the basketball world as of late, and it's going to only get crazier because the countdowns are getting serious now in both college basketball and the NBA, which means the countdown towards draft season starting is getting serious, and we're starting to circle the wagons when it comes to prospects we are getting really excited about. That's what we do all summer long at No Ceilings. But now the fans are joining us to talk about who is getting some hype right now. And the name I wanted to start this episode with, I wanted to talk with you, the mad scientist, is Bennett Stirtz, who I think could be one of the top returners in this class. So what are your thoughts about Bennett Stirtz? Tell the people why everyone's getting so excited about him.
Because he rocks. Because he's super good at basketball. That's why. Signed Sturtz, obviously point guard for Drake last year, transferring into Iowa, following his coach from Drake to Iowa. New era of Hawkeye basketball kicking off. Iowa fans should be very, very excited. Iowa has Sturtz listed at 6'4", 190 pounds. And last year, he was one of these guys who just, his numbers always popped. It's like, holy crap, this guy's numbers are impressive. And holy crap, like, is this real? Like, are we sure? And it just throughout the year, it's like, well, he's not really playing anyone. He's at Drake. He's putting up awesome numbers. The tape's fun. It's flashy. It's creative. But how real is this? And then as the season kept going on, it's like, well, he's still doing this. And this isn't falling off. And, oh, my God, we might have to catch up and actually treat this guy like a real prospect because he is. For some reason, I was a little surprised that he decided to return, but I get it. Transferring up from Drake in the Missouri Valley Conference to Iowa in the Big Ten every single day. If he can put up anything close to what he did, I don't think people are going to care that he's not the most explosive athlete, that he's going to be a senior. Like, he could be one of the first point guards off the board.
You put it perfectly. This was a guy last year that was putting up eye-opening numbers that were like, well, he's at Drake. How legit is it? And then as the year went on, they started playing tougher competition, and he was producing the same results against, a couple games against the SEC, a couple games against Big 12. He was still bringing that to the table. So people were like, okay, there might be something here. Bennett Stirtz last year averaged 19.2 points, 4.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists on 49, 39, 79. At first, you might say, hey, that's pretty impressive on paper. Then you watch the tape and see how he does it, and I think you're like, oh, my goodness, this is something special. He's pulling up from the parking lot when it comes to shooting from outside. He knows how to toy with defenders and defenses to get his teammates open and get efficient shots off. I think that's what makes him so intriguing as a transfer target, because I agree with you. I thought he was going to be a name that really got some steam in last year's class, but he kind of popped out early and was like, I'm transferring. So I think scouts are excited to see him go to Iowa now. They want to see if this is legit. He could be a big time prospect despite being older. What do you love so much about his game, Metcalf? Like when you're evaluating, when you're watching him, what is something that you're just like, oh man, like I'm in? What's the selling point for you personally? Like, why should fans be intrigued with him as a talent in college basketball this year?
Just the game is so slow for him in terms of how he reads and reacts. He's 4 steps ahead of everyone at all times, and it really bears out in the numbers with the decision making, with the efficiencies, and he's also just always on the court. Like he never subs out. He's never hurt. Um, and last year he had a minute share of 98.8%. That's insane. That's it. That's irresponsible by the coach. What are we doing? But along with that came a BPM of 10 with an offensive rating of 126.4 when he was on the court, a usage of 26.1, true shooting of 60.4, assist rate of 34 with a turnover rate of just 13.1. So he's generating an insane amount of assists without ever making mistakes and turning the ball over. And when you first look at that combination of numbers, it's like, oh, well, okay, so he's just making easy reads. He's making the extra pass, just finding the open guy. And he does that a lot. But then you actually watch him. It's like, oh, no, he's moving defenders and passing guys open and creating passing windows that shouldn't be there. And just subtle little lookaways that move a defender half a step. That's all he needs. And the fact that he just constantly did it throughout the year and was unfazed and one of those silent, emotionless killers with Drake in the regular season, once they got into the tournament and he continued to start making some noise and doing the same things that we saw all regular season. It's like, oh my God, this dude is just he's special, at least as a college guy. He's really special.
Yeah, he's got a couple go-to moves. Like he's got his little drive in the lane, quick spin floater. That's just really tough to stop because of how smooth and he gets you to bite on that. His playmaking is ridiculous because I know what you're saying. It's not just guys are wide open all the time. He is like working to throw unbelievable looks. There's a world in which he gets at Iowa and hits the ground running, and it's going to be like, no, you better get on the Bennett Stirtz hype train quick, because if he can do that at Drake, and it wasn't just fluke game, like we saw him against tough competition throughout the year showcase it still. Like he looked like the same player. That with the shooting ability and how quickly he can get in a groove and take over with the scoring, I think that's what's getting people so excited. Where would you have him right now? Where would you not be surprised if he ended up? And I don't need exact numbers. I'm just saying, is he right now, you're thinking realistically, like potentially a lottery pick that with a good year could get up into that early portion of the top 10? Or where do you think realistically right now is a target area if you had to predict in September? What you would like to do?
I have him at 10 on my board right now, and I think that late lottery, mid first, at that 10 to 20 range makes a lot of sense. Because in the bold predictions episode that we did over on the No Ceilings feed a couple weeks ago, I ran through just the history of freshmen going in that top 10 and how all but like one, I think it's 2013 was the last time that more upperclassmen went in the top 10 than freshmen. I have a lot of questions about this freshman class, but inevitably, and we've had a lot of questions about previous freshman classes, and inevitably, the shiny new thing, the potential, oh man, what could this guy turn into? NBA teams can't help themselves, and they almost always steer towards that. So I would be comfortable taking him in the top 10 right now. A lot of basketball to be played, and he's got to prove it against Big Ten competition. But I mean, like when we look at, sorry to rattle off some more numbers here via our friends at Synergy, but 91st percentile in overall points per possession. When we look at play types, 87th as pick and roll ball handler, 84th spotting up, 90th in isolation, 92nd in handoffs, 91st in transition. When we factor in some of his passes, 82nd percentile in the pick and roll, 86th percentile in isolation. So he's doing it everywhere. He can play on ball, he can play off ball, he can shoot off the bounce, where he was in the 80th percentile shooting off the dribble, the 94th percentile shooting off the catch, the 92nd percentile shooting at the rim. Those are good. Those are incredibly good numbers. And he's not just a one-trick pony where he has to have the ball in his hand or is taking just standstill, wide open corner threes. It's everywhere and it's everything. So I'd be very, very confident taking him in the lottery at the least.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break, and we're going to get even deeper into the Bennett Stirtz mania, because this is one we just can't skim over. We're both very excited about. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever presenting a spreadsheet. Don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. Okay, Metcalf, we're back. We can't get over this one too quick because I think Stirtz does have that potential to really get into this conversation early in this class. I think you put it perfectly. Like, history has shown us this is not going to be a guy that goes too early because teams always chase upside. They chase potential, as you said. We've done a breakdown about it in depth of, you put out a bunch of numbers of saying like, look, this just doesn't happen. At the same time, I think we're waiting with now the transfer portal, the NIL is changing probably the course of the tides of draft history because we might just get some different results with guys staying in college more. Is he one that's going to be the poster child for what are you doing? You're overthinking because he's good and he's older, but it's just a classic. I watched Bennett Stirtz. The first time I watched him as like a deep dive, I was like, there's so many boxes he checks.
Yeah.
Yes, he's going to get the typical, he's a white point guard at the NBA level. Like, is he going to be? He reminds me of Nash with the way he just moves. He sees the floor. He could shoot it. He could shoot. He could score mid-range. He could get to the basket and be tough. He makes a lot of baskets where you're like, how is not blocked into the fifth row of the arena? Like, what are you realistically thinking for Stirtz? Like, is there a number you wouldn't be surprised with of like where he goes this year? Because I just think there's so many parts of his game that really pop as an NBA player potentially.
Yeah, and my biggest concern or question, I guess, to put it that way, is just how does he look physically?
Mhm.
So I don't think he's a bad athlete by any means, but and I also don't think he's an awesome one. And it always felt like his first step wasn't. I always left wanting a little more from that,
Mhm.
but then he still always got to his spots and still got to the rim. It's like, all right, well, how much of that is him understanding angles and using his body to shield off defenders, which he does a really good job of. But then also how much of it is the competition level. And because as you just step up, and let alone forget college to the pros, but even the Missouri Valley Conference to the Big Ten, the speed, the athleticism, the power, the physicality, it's night and day difference. And if he can continue to do these same things, even if aesthetically I'm still like, that this isn't making sense how he's getting from point A to point B, but he's still doing it. That's like, all right, well, it goes back to like the shooting mechanics with guys where it's like, I don't care if it looks funky, if it goes in, that's all I care about. If he still gets to his spots, it's kind of all I care about. But if he really starts to struggle with it, then I think that's going to be where we start seeing a lot of the overthinking come into play. A lot of the, are we sure he's a lottery guy? Like he's an older, it's like, yeah, cool story at Drake last year, but he's coming back down to earth now that he's playing the big boys. It wouldn't totally shock me if that happens, rightly or wrongly.
I mean, he puts up numbers you can't really ignore. I don't think it's just a guy too that's putting up nice numbers. I think it's a guy that really can just take over a game and dominate. You look at his splits last year in February, he had an 8-game stretch where he averaged 21, 5, and 5 with almost 1.5 steals per game on 52, 50, 80. So those are pretty good. And then you look at March, 6-game stretch, 21, 3.8 rebounds and 4.2 assists on 50, 44, 83. So he checks the boxes with efficiency. And if you go watch his tape, you see those 3-point percentages aren't always just wide open. Those are very deep, very aggressive, Steph Curry-ish like pulls sometimes. Like he's not a shot chucker, but he also knows when he's in a rhythm. And if you're gonna go under him on a screen, he's gonna make you look foolish. Let's take one last break, and then I have $1 million question for you that I want to figure out.
Good.
All right. Today's episode is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you've had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the person didn't answer the phone, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets me manage business calls and texts from a single app. You know, we're talking about basketball. We're talking about a lot of people around the industry. That's why I lean on Open Phone to help me balance all the communication, all the draft talk, all the questions. Open Phone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, we're back. See, Metcalf, I'm getting too excited. I want to be patient because I feel the countdown's getting to 0. I feel draft season around the corner, so I'm getting too juiced up. Me and you talk about this all the time. Now, I have one last question for you, and you could probably, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you guys. You could probably guess what this one's going to be about. But one of our biggest questions I always have with you is this a good college player or is this an NBA player? And that's my $1 million question for you, for Bennett Stirtz. Do you think this is going to be one of those college players that we're always talking about, like, oh, he was awesome, it just didn't work at the next level? Or do you think this is the start of something big as a legit NBA prospect?
I think he's a legit NBA guy. Like I would be happy having him run my offense. Now, is he going to put up the same numbers and have the same level of impact as he did in college? That I'm a little more skeptical of. I don't think he's going to be quite as prolific, quite as efficient, quite as dominant. And if he comes out with Iowa this year and puts up the exact same numbers, if not better, then maybe I'll walk that back. But I think everything we've seen from him over the last year is exactly what you want from your modern point guard. He's an incredibly smart decision maker. He's a creative playmaker. He's a 3-level scorer efficiently. He doesn't make bad decisions. The defense is okay. I think it's fine enough. And plus he's 6'4", really smart defender, steal rate of 3.3 last year. So there's some defensive playmaking instincts in there to kind of cover up any of the potential physical shortcomings. I think he's the real deal. To what level? You know, that's like all these guys. We're just gonna have to wait and find out. But the versatility, the efficiency, both on and off ball, it's too much at this point for me to be like, I don't think it's legit.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to, and we're obviously trying to play devil's advocate here of predicting like something that's going to happen very, very far down the line. College basketball season hasn't started. A lot of things are going to change, but like if everything goes perfect for Stirtz, he's still going to get the upperclassmen older age doubt, which I always don't think is fair, but I get how NBA teams are thinking. He's also, I think, going to have to be very fit dependent. And in the minds of front offices, they're going to be like, we have to have the right roster construction around him to really let him blossom early on. Like the Timberwolves going to get Rob Dillingham. I think they thought that same thing of like, hey, we can hide Rob's, weaknesses defensively with what we've built already. So it's a perfect fit for both sides. We're still waiting to see that. I know you are, but I think Stirtz is going to have that same discussion with front offices. I think teams are going to be like, if we have the team around, this is a perfect guy that can hurt the defenses with his scoring ability, put people in position to succeed with his vision, his playmaking. because you mentioned something earlier in this episode about like his first step, which was always the thing I always was like questioning. I was like, is it that good, or is he so good at understanding I can sell you to get to somewhere else? Like I can make you believe I want to go here when I'm really trying to navigate everyone to draw the attention and go somewhere else. So what's one of your favorite things about his game? Like what do you think he's just like, hey, like he can lean on this all year and then still carry that into NBA and like have early success? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, just the decision making and the
Yeah.
different ways that he finds to contribute to winning basketball. It'll be really interesting to see what his usage and overall ball dominance looks like with Iowa this year, because they are also bringing in Alvaro Folgueras from Robert Morris, really dynamic forward, 6'9", can play with or without the ball. And it'll be really interesting to see what Sturtz's play distribution looks like compared to what it was at Drake, where he was running the show, where he was doing everything. So it'll be curious to see, do they maintain that similar level? I kind of think they will to some extent, or do they try and, truncate that a little bit to make him more efficient in other areas and to divert some of that energy to the defensive end or to his off-ball offense, because I think he can just do a little bit of everything. And that ability to play on or off ball, to create for others or himself, it's like you were talking about with Fit, and it makes him incredibly malleable, where he's one of these guys where it's like, I think he can kind of fit anywhere. And like when we look at just like the middle of the first round, just, on Tankathon's current standings, right. A lot of basketball to be played, but like, I'd love him in Dallas. I think that would be.
So this is what I was wanting to get to the last part, is I was wanting to say like, hey, what are NBA teams if we were predicting? We have a crystal ball right now, and we're like, this is the perfect spot for him. So go ahead. I'm just letting everybody know. So Dallas, okay.
Dallas makes a ton of sense. He screams an Indiana Pacer.
TJ McConnell would say otherwise, but go ahead.
I would take Bennett Stirtz over TJ, but no disrespect to TJ. I'd like Memphis, Indiana, San Antonio makes sense, and even though they have a billion point guards right now, but hey, Golden this one can shoot.
I thought Golden State would be funny timing if they got Stirtz somehow, and like, Steph, here's your younger, much lighter version of you.
No, it's they'll have traded away that first round pick by that time.
They can't anymore. They better keep them. They got to start predicting the future.
I like him in Boston a lot.
Yeah.
I like him in Milwaukee a lot. I think he's just one of these guys where I think he kind of makes sense. I like him in Miami a lot. I think he's one of these guys that can run an offense at a really high level without having to dominate the ball. He can set up teammates. He can run a pick and roll. He can spot up. He can run off screens. He can be put in motion. And then he has the size to make up for. And then just the positional size is encouraging. It's not overwhelming, but it's not an issue by any means.
Completely agree. He seems like he could be one of those guards where you're like, are we really going to pass this up? Because if it clicks, it's going to be an absolute home run for someone. It's not going to just be like
Minnesota.
Yeah. Well, you could talk yourself into a ton of teams.
Yeah.
Like he seems like you put him in Denver with Jokic. Like, gosh. And that's the type of player we're talking about with Sturtz, where every time I watched him on tape, I found something else I liked about his game.
Yeah.
And those are the ones you find, like, those are really special, where you're like, it's different every time. Like one time it's the shooting. One time it's how he sets up defenders. One time it's his playmaking, his ability to read the ball. Defensively, he's not going to overpower people, but he is a Cobra that knows when to strike. Like he had 2.0 or over 2 assists, 2 steals per game last year. You don't just get that by a miracle. Like he knows when to take advantage of opportunity. I think that's the best thing about his game on both sides. He's so smart. He knows when to attack his spots. He knows when to attack spots to set up other people. He understands scoring gravity. If he gets hot in a little bit, he knows how that can set somebody else up. what other thoughts? Because now we just named the whole first round. We're like, yeah, he makes sense anywhere.
Well, so here I'll give you a little more interesting one. So the Kings, tankathon standings with 0 games played. They're currently sitting at 8. Let's say they stay there, so they're going to miss out on the top 4 guys. If you were the Kings, would you rather take a swing on a Caleb Wilson, Kareem Lopez, Tunde Yesufu, Darius Acuff, Nate Ament, Jaden Quaintance, one of those kind of guys, or do you take Bennett Stirtz?
I mean, the correct answer, the safe answer right now is I would rather be swinging if I'm at high to take like Caleb Wilson and stuff like those guys, Tunde. But they're doing this every time. This is how the teams keep picking in the top 10 is because they ignore, and we're not saying draft for just need, but if it's close enough to where you feel great about Stirtz, he does solve a lot of problems on your roster. He is that piece that could probably put things together. I think Stirtz he would be worthy of a pick there. Now, someone will argue that's drafting for need, but it's also, if the best player on your board, if you have the best 3 guys, not separated by a lot of plays, but they all play different positions and you have a very big gap at the point guard position, that makes a lot of sense for me. I don't necessarily consider that drafting for need. I consider that drafting for, we don't have another choice if we don't do this. So I would probably, it'd become down to workouts, interviews, and
yeah.
But
we have so much time.
Yeah, we have so much time. But what would you do? Now, Caleb Wilson's a heck of a talent, but it also, like, we're having fun, but that comes down to, did you trade players? Or DeRozan and Levine still around? Are you finally going to stop playing Keegan Murray as a 4? Like, what? Or you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
yeah, and the point more so is like that 8.
It's a conversation. Yeah,
it's like, oh boy, like it's the kind of starting point for me at this point in mid-September of, all right, are we just going to go get our guy, or are we taking a lottery ticket?
He'd have to have a heck of a year.
He would.
To be at 8. He'd have to have a heck of a year. Because, like, you could go back and look at Steph Curry's Davidson season when we did that on one episode. And that good of a year got him to 7. He was a junior. So, like, this is going to be a older version of that.
If he does it again in the Big Ten,
100%.
It's different. So,
and if he takes a leap, I think scouts are more excited if you take a leap. If it's not just a small step and you're shooting more, if you take a leap in your game and it looks like, oh, you really improved in a number of areas from one season, I think that's a bigger no, because that's still someone on the rise with their development. But any last thoughts? Any predictions? Now the Kings one's going to sit in my head for like a week, so I appreciate that.
No, he's good, and I'm very excited to see him in person this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was a good one. So let's end on a high note. All right, Metcalf, you got a last thought. Pro comp. You got to give me one name that Bennett Stirtz reminds you of, and it's not a 1-for-1 pro comp for everyone listening, for everyone watching. This is not 1-for-1 pro comps. This is someone we get reminded of, vibes, shades of.
I think there are on the high end. I think there's some Tyrese Halliburton in this game.
Yeah, like he has that point guard ability of like it looks funky enough, but he seems to always be a step ahead.
Yeah.
Halliburton's like that, where Halliburton
I'm talking high
end. Yeah,
like if
I
we're
said,
taking him top 10, that's what we're hoping
I said he
for.
reminds me of Steve Nash earlier, so that's probably even worse than that. But I'm saying like just the every player picks something of a game. Like they find something of watching tape, watching film, where they're like, I could replicate that. I could try to use that move in my arsenal. And I feel like his little dribble, drive, spin, floater, Halliburton does it a lot. You saw, I hated when he did it because it didn't look as smooth, but Jason Kidd did it a ton, but he did like the push shot. I don't know. It's just, you got to find ways. If you're not going to beat people above the rim, you got to find go-to moves and finishes. And I think that's a big part of being a point guard. So, okay, well, that was a good one. Do you like Halliburton? Any other ones, or is that where you're leaning?
So some Malcolm Brogdon, maybe.
That was a good save right there, because we knew people were going to be like, what the heck? Bennett Stirtz and Tyrese Halliburton? Malcolm Brogdon's always a good save. You're like, oh,
yeah, that's always a safe one, because they'll be like, oh, he was good, and it's like, oh, he sucks, and it's that nice in between.
Shout out Knicks fans; they should be happy that they got Brogdon. Okay, well that's it for this episode. Be following us as always. Draft season's really heating up, folks. We're getting to that point, that magical time of the year where people are starting to get excited. So make sure you're following our content. We've got episodes coming every day. The rest of the team has been having episodes all week. It's been fun stuff. So for myself, Tyler Rucker, and for Tyler Metcalf, the mad scientist, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings. We will talk to you guys soon. Take care.